He opened the old house cameras just to catch an intruder, but what he saw froze his entire world. His ex-wife, holding a newborn baby, 8 months after he left her, and that baby had his eyes. The Mafia boss was about to face the one truth even bullets couldn't kill: love. The city outside his office windows bled silver light through the rain, soft and distorted against the glass. Inside, the marble floors gleamed with sterile perfection, reflecting the sharp edges of a man who had built an empire out of ashes and betrayal. Mr. Rhodes sat behind his vast black desk, a storm in a tailored suit. His fingers drummed absently on a crystal glass of whiskey that had long gone untouched. Power had given him everything: respect, fear, control, but never peace. Not since the night he left Layla. The memory of that night still lived like smoke in his lungs. Her voice had cracked when she said his name for the last time, and he'd walked away without turning back. That was 8 months ago. 8 months of silence. 8 months of pretending she no longer existed. The clock struck 9 when the intercom buzzed. His security chief's voice came through, uncertain, almost trembling. "Sir, there's movement at the old mansion." For a moment, Rhodes didn't move. His jaw clenched, eyes narrowing at the words. That house, the one he hadn't stepped into since that cursed night, was sealed, guarded, forgotten. No one dared enter it. He pressed the intercom button slowly, voice cold and clipped. "What kind of movement?" The man hesitated. "Human, sir. A woman." A muscle twitched in Rhodes' cheek. He leaned back in his chair, a low growl building in his chest. "Show me the feed," he ordered. The large screen on the wall flickered to life, showing the mansion's grand halls cloaked in shadows. Dust floated in the air like ghosts. Then, movement. Soft, slow, graceful. At first he thought it was a trick of the light, maybe one of his men checking the grounds. But when she stepped into view, his blood turned to ice. Layla. She wore a loose white dress that clung to her frame in the dim light, her hair slightly messy, her face pale yet luminous. She looked like a dream resurrected from his worst memories, and in her arms, something small, fragile, his throat closed, a baby. The camera's grainy footage made it hard to see clearly, but there was no mistaking it. She was holding a newborn, his chest constricted, heart hammering as the realization fought its way through disbelief. Layla, with a child. The glass slipped from his hand, shattering against the marble floor. He didn't even hear it. The sound of his pulse drowned everything else. He leaned forward, staring at the screen as though it could lie to him, but it didn't. Layla moved with a gentleness that twisted the knife deeper. She laid the baby in a crib near the old fireplace, the same place where she once promised him they'd raise a family. His mind screamed it couldn't be real, yet every frame was a blade of truth. His cigar rolled from between his fingers, forgotten, as he whispered her name under his breath. Layla. For years, Rhodes had ruled through chaos and cruelty. He had watched men beg for mercy, and he never flinched. But now, he couldn't breathe. His lungs refused to move. His world spinning as if gravity had turned on him. That woman, his weakness, his undoing, was standing in the house he abandoned, holding a child that could only belong to him. A wave of fury rose in him, hot and poisonous. Who gave her the right to enter his home again? Who was that baby's father? A bitter thought burned through his mind like acid. Had she moved on that quickly? He pushed back from his desk so suddenly that the chair screeched against the floor. His reflection in the window stared back at him. Hard eyes, clenched jaw, veins taut under his skin. But beneath all that steel, there was something else. Fear. The kind he hadn't felt since he was a boy. He walked toward the screen, watching her every movement like a man possessed. Layla's expression wasn't one of fear or trespass. It was calm, almost wistful. She touched the wall with her free hand, as if remembering the past that still lingered there. Then she turned, looking straight at the camera for a moment, and it felt like her eyes pierced through the lens and into his soul. His hand trembled when he reached for the volume control, though he knew there was no sound on those feeds. Still, his mind filled the silence with her voice, the soft whisper of his name, the echoes of laughter long dead. He saw the way she brushed her thumb across the baby's cheek, and something inside him cracked open. He wanted to deny it, wanted to rage, to destroy the screen, but he couldn't look away. For the first time in years, Mr. Rode forgot how to breathe. The office that once felt like a fortress now suffocated him. The ticking clock grew louder, mocking. He tried to reason with himself. Maybe it wasn't hers. Maybe it wasn't his. Maybe this was just a ghost haunting him from the life he destroyed. But logic drowned under the pull of something deeper. Instinct, connection, blood. The baby's tiny blanket had a faint pattern he recognized. It was one Layla had designed years ago during sleepless nights when she dreamed of motherhood. He remembered teasing her about it, saying he'd never have time for family. She'd smiled sadly and said, "You'll make time when your heart learns to breathe." And now, staring at the footage, he felt that prophecy come alive. He wanted to shout at her through the screen, to demand answers, to storm into that mansion and demand the truth. But something in her face, something fragile, haunted, made him freeze. She looked tired. Not physically, but emotionally. Like someone who had been through hell and walked back only to find the fire still burning. She held the baby close, pressing a kiss on its forehead, and his heart twisted violently. He didn't know if it was guilt, love, or rage clawing at him from inside. He dragged a hand down his face, breath coming in uneven bursts. The taste of whiskey on his tongue turned bitter. Every instinct he had screamed at him to get control, to think like the Mafia boss he was, not the broken man she had left behind. But reason drowned beneath emotion. He replayed the footage, again and again. Each time, the same thing, Layla's face, the baby, the warmth that didn't belong in a house built from power and pain. His fingers tightened on the edge of the desk until his knuckles whitened. He needed to know. He needed the truth, no matter how much it destroyed him. The cold mask he wore for years began to crack, revealing the man beneath, the one she once loved, the one he buried under greed and vengeance. The storm outside thundered, lightning flashing across the sky like a warning. And in that brief flash of light, Rode made a silent vow. If that baby was his, he would burn the world to protect it. And if it wasn't, then the world would burn anyway. The security feed flickered once more, static crawling across the image. When the picture returned, Layla was gone. Only the crib remained, swaying slightly as if touched by an unseen hand. Rode's breath hitched, his pulse wild. He stepped closer to the screen, his reflection merging with the darkened room behind her image. Somewhere in the depths of his chest, an old ache came alive, the ache of love, of loss, of something too dangerous to name. He pressed his hand against the cold glass, whispering to the ghost of her silhouette, "What are you hiding from me, Layla?" The storm raged louder outside as though answering him. In the silence that followed, the faint echo of a baby's cry filled his imagination. It wasn't real, yet it sounded too close, too sharp, too alive. And in that moment, Mr. Rode knew one thing with absolute certainty. Whatever truth waited for him in that mansion, it would not leave him the same man. The night had not ended for Mr. Rode. It only deepened into something darker. The storm outside his glass tower still raged, but inside his chest, a storm more violent took shape. He sat in his office long after the security footage ended, the static still flickering faintly on the darkened screen, like a heartbeat refusing to die. The image of Layla holding that newborn burned behind his eyelids. No matter how many times he tried to blink it away, it returned, soft, vivid, merciless. Sleep had abandoned him, leaving only ghosts and memories for company. He loosened his tie, leaned back in his chair, and stared at the ceiling. The faint hum of the city below seeped through the walls, a reminder of the empire he'd built from blood and betrayal. He had traded love for loyalty, warmth for war. And now, the one person who once gave him peace had reappeared with a child that might be his. The thought gnawed at him like rust eating through steel. His heart wanted to believe it, but his mind refused to trust. Layla had always been a mystery, a fire he couldn't contain, a wound he couldn't heal. He replayed the footage again, each second slower than the last. There she was, moving through the hallways of their old mansion as if she still belonged there. His mansion, their memories, their ruins. She looked fragile, yet fearless, the kind of woman who had walked through storms and learned to dance in them. The baby's blanket came into view again, embroidered with his family crest. It wasn't a coincidence. It was a message. But what kind? "Why are you there, Layla?" he whispered to the empty room. His voice broke halfway through her name. He clenched his jaw, hating the weakness it exposed. On the screen, her eyes seemed to look right at him, as though she knew he was watching. He paused the video, zoomed in until her face filled the frame. The same soft lips he had kissed 1,000 times. The same eyes that once looked at him like he was her entire world. But now, those eyes carried something else. Distance. Maybe even pity. It gutted him. Rhodes' hand slammed the desk. The sound echoed through the office, sharp and hollow. His rage had nowhere to go. Every muscle in his body strained against the weight of emotions he didn't want to feel. For years, he had built walls around his heart, bricked with cruelty and silence, reinforced by power. But Layla's image had cracked them open like glass beneath a hammer. He hated her for it. He loved her still for it. He didn't know which feeling would kill him first. He poured himself another drink, the amber liquid trembling in the glass as his hand shook. He swallowed it in one harsh gulp, the burn grounding him for only a moment. "You don't step into my house unless you want something," he muttered, voice low, dangerous. But beneath the anger there was a tremor, a fracture only he could feel. Layla had always been deliberate. Every move she made carried meaning. So why now? Why after all these months? The city lights flickered against the rain-streaked windows, and he could see his own reflection. Tired eyes, clenched jaw. A shadow of the man who once believed he was invincible. He dragged a hand through his hair, the silence pressing on him until it felt unbearable. He needed answers. Not tomorrow. Tonight. He turned on his intercom. "Get the car ready," he ordered. His voice was sharp, controlled, but his pulse was a drum of chaos. Within minutes, his security chief, Victor, entered the room. The man hesitated before speaking. "Sir, the mansion—" "I know," Rhodes cut in coldly. "Find her. I don't care how. I want her location by dawn." Victor nodded, fear flickering behind his eyes. He knew better than to question the boss when that tone surfaced. Still, he asked softly, "And if she doesn't want to be found?" Rhodes' gaze lifted slowly, dangerously. "Everyone wants to be found," he said, though even he didn't believe the words. When the door closed behind Victor, the silence returned, thick and suffocating. Rhodes leaned against the desk, staring out at the endless city lights. His mind wandered to the night he left Layla, the rain that fell just like tonight, the fight that had ripped them apart. He had walked away, telling himself it was to protect her from his enemies. But the truth he refused to admit was simpler. He had been afraid of loving someone who could break him. And now here he was, broken anyway. His phone buzzed on the desk, a notification. Security cameras, motion detected again. His stomach dropped. He clicked the feed open. The same house, same dim lights. But this time, Only shadows moved across the hallways. Layla was gone. The crib was empty, the blanket folded neatly, gone, like she had never been there. He straightened slowly, the air around him turning colder. "She's playing a game," he whispered. But even as he said it, there was no conviction in his tone. He couldn't shake the image of her eyes in that camera feed. They hadn't looked like a woman playing games. They had looked like someone running from something, or someone. He lit another cigar, inhaling deeply, letting the smoke fill the hollow space in his chest. He remembered how she used to hate that habit. "One day, that smoke will kill you," she'd said once, smiling as she snatched the cigar from his lips and tossed it away. He had laughed then. He hadn't laughed since. The memory made his jaw tighten. He pushed it away, burying it under the noise of the rain and the hum of city life far below. He picked up the photo frame from the corner of his desk. It was the only picture he hadn't destroyed when she left, a faded image of them standing in that same mansion, smiling like fools in love. Her head rested on his shoulder. He could almost smell her perfume, hear her laugh. He set the photo down harshly, the frame cracking slightly at the corner. That sound felt final, but it wasn't. Nothing ever ended cleanly between them. The intercom buzzed again. "Sir, the men are on it," Victor reported. "We'll find her." Rode gave a curt nod, staring at the cracked photo. "Make sure you do." His tone was ice, but his heart raced like wildfire. When Victor left, he sank into his chair, elbows on his knees, fingers clasped tightly. He tried to think like the ruthless strategist he was, to dissect the situation logically. But logic failed when the heart screamed louder. What if the baby was his? The thought hit him again, sharper this time. The timeline fit. 8 months ago, he'd left her, angry, shattered. If she'd been pregnant, then... His pulse quickened. His mind started to count the months, replaying every argument, every word he had thrown like a blade. What if he had left her carrying his child? The guilt that followed was unbearable. He had buried too many people, but this was a grave he had dug for himself. The rain eased outside, leaving behind the heavy stillness of midnight. Rode stood and walked to the window. The reflection staring back at him looked nothing like the man the world feared. His eyes were softer now, haunted. The city's neon glow caught the edge of his features, making him look almost human again. He hated it. He missed her so fiercely that it frightened him. He missed her laughter, her stubbornness, the way she saw through his armor like it was made of glass. And yet, under all that longing, a darker thought pulsed. What if she had replaced him? What if that baby wasn't his, but another man's? The idea twisted his insides until his hands curled into fists. He didn't know which would destroy him more, the truth or the lie. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled one last time before the storm finally broke. Rode's phone lit up again, a message from Victor. "We found something, sir. You'll want to see this." His heart gave a violent thud. He stared at the message, unmoving, the cigar burning low between his fingers. The smoke curled toward the ceiling like a ghost whispering his name. Whatever Victor had found, it would change everything. And for the first time in years, Mr. Rode wasn't sure if he was ready for the truth. The night was still soaked in the scent of rain when Mr. Rhodes' car came to a halt before the old mansion. The iron gates creaked open with a moan that echoed through the mist, sounding almost alive, like the house itself remembered him. The headlights washed over the familiar stone pillars. The vines creeping higher since he'd last been here. 8 months of abandonment, yet the house stood as if holding its breath, waiting for him to return. The storm clouds had passed, but the air carried a heavy, electric stillness, thick enough to choke on. Rode stepped out of the car, boots crunching against the wet gravel. Every step toward that house felt like walking into a memory he had buried too deep. He paused at the entrance. The front doors loomed tall, their wood darkened with age and rain. His reflection flickered faintly in the glass panes, an empire's ruler, But at that moment, just a man haunted by a woman. His hand hovered over the doorknob before he finally pushed it open. The hinges groaned like a cry from the past. The scent hit him instantly. Dust, rain, and something softer beneath it. Her perfume. A ghostly trace of Layla that lingered like a whisper in the air. His pulse jumped. The silence inside was too perfect, too deliberate, the kind that hides secrets. He stepped into the grand foyer, and the familiar echo of his boots filled the space. The chandelier above, once gleaming with life, hung dull and cobwebbed. He glanced at the staircase where she used to wait for him, sometimes angry, sometimes smiling, but always radiant. Now it was just shadows and emptiness. His jaw tightened as he walked deeper inside, past the dining hall, the drawing room, the marble columns. Every corner breathed with memories he didn't want, but couldn't escape. The walls seemed to hum with the echo of her laughter. He could almost see her walking through these halls, barefoot and carefree, holding her shoes in one hand, teasing him about his obsession with order. That vision vanished when he turned into the corridor leading to the east wing. The door at the end stood slightly ajar, light spilling faintly from within. His chest constricted. That was the nursery, the one he had promised to fill with toys, lullabies, and love, the one he had abandoned when he left her. Rhode's hand trembled as he pushed the door open. The room was dimly lit, soft golden light pooling around the edges of the crib near the window. The curtains fluttered gently, the wind carrying the scent of rain and something achingly familiar. Her perfume. He froze. Everything inside was neat, untouched, but alive. A rocking chair stood by the crib, swaying slightly as though someone had just been there. The walls, once painted in warm colors by Layla's hands, had faded, but he could still see the little sketches she had drawn for a child that never came, or so he thought. And then he saw it. The blanket. It lay folded neatly on the pillow inside the crib, small and white with fine embroidery, his family crest, the mark of the Rhode bloodline. His heart slammed against his ribs. He stepped closer, fingers brushing the soft fabric. The moment his skin touched it, he knew. It wasn't a coincidence. The weight of realization crushed the breath from his chest. His lips parted, voice hoarse and broken. "He's mine," he whispered, disbelief and awe bleeding into every syllable. The words echoed softly against the walls, and in that moment time seemed to still. The empire, the enemies, the chaos, none of it mattered. Only this small, silent room and the truth that burned inside it. His hand tightened around the edge of the crib, knuckles white. He could almost see the baby's face, the curve of tiny fingers, the softness of Layla's touch. His throat closed with something raw and unfamiliar. For the first time in years, he felt human. But before he could move another inch, the air shifted. The faint creak of a floorboard cut through the silence. He turned sharply. A shadow stood behind him, half illuminated by the moonlight pouring through the window. His pulse spiked, muscles tensing, and then she stepped into view. Layla. For a heartbeat, the world fell away. Her presence hit him like a punch to the chest. She was real. Flesh and breath and sorrow standing before him. The soft white dress she wore clung to her like mist, her hair falling in loose waves, damp from the night air. Her eyes met his, sharp and cold, yet shimmering with something she tried to hide. "You shouldn't be here, Rhode," she said quietly. Her voice was steady, but beneath the calm he could hear the tremor of old wounds reopening. He stared at her, unable to form words. The air between them crackled with everything unspoken: regret, fury, love. His voice came out rough, low, trembling with emotion he couldn't contain. "Neither should you." He tried to sound cold, but it came out softer than he wanted. His eyes flicked to the crib again. "You brought him here?" Her gaze followed his. The faintest flicker of pain crossed her face, but she masked it quickly. "This place belonged to both of us once," she said. "I had nowhere else to go." Her tone was calm, but her fingers gripped the edge of her dress, betraying tension. Rode took a step closer, his chest tightening. "You could have gone anywhere, Layla. Why here?" He searched her face, desperate for an answer, but all he found was silence and the quiet hum of her breathing. Layla's eyes softened for a moment, as though she was about to tell him something, but then she looked away. "I came because it's the only place he's safe," she said finally. "Your enemies would never think to look here." Her words struck him like a blade. His enemies, his world, the one that had ruined everything she ever loved. He ran a hand through his hair, pacing the room like a caged animal. "You should have told me," he muttered. "I deserved to know." She let out a bitter laugh. "You left, Rode. You didn't want to know." That stung more than a gunshot. He turned to face her fully, the moonlight carving sharp lines across his face. "You think I stopped caring?" he asked quietly, stepping closer until their shadows merged. "You think walking away meant forgetting you?" Her lips parted, but no sound came. For a second, the mask of strength she wore cracked, revealing the storm beneath. "You think it was easy for me?" she whispered. "You left me bleeding with your ghosts. You burned down everything we built, and now you stand here acting like you're the victim." Rhode's hand clenched into a fist. The air between them felt alive, thick with anger and longing. "I did what I had to do to keep you safe," he said through gritted teeth. "Safe?" Her voice rose, shaking. "You destroyed us in the name of safety." The baby's soft whimper broke through the air, snapping the tension like glass. Layla turned instantly, instinctively, her voice softening as she looked toward the crib. Rhode's gaze followed, his heart twisting. For the first time, he saw a part of himself reflected in that tiny life. The way she held the baby, the tenderness in her eyes, it all burned into him like sunlight after years of darkness. He took a hesitant step closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Let me see him." Layla froze. Her body tensed, her arms instinctively tightening around the child. The silence stretched, every second louder than the last. Rhode's heart pounded, but he didn't move closer. He waited, watching her. Her breathing quickened. She turned slightly, her eyes shimmering with fear and conflict. "You shouldn't have come back," she said softly. "You'll bring danger to him." Rhode's jaw hardened, but his tone broke with emotion. "Danger's already here, Layla. It's been here since the day I left." For a moment, their eyes met. His filled with guilt, hers with pain. The distance between them was only a few feet, but it felt like years. The house around them groaned in the wind, a hollow echo of the life they once shared. And somewhere deep in that silence, a promise from long ago stirred, a promise he once made to her under that same roof. "I'll always come back for you." Now he had. But at what cost? Layla looked down at the child sleeping in her arms, her lips trembling as if holding back words that could change everything. She whispered, almost too quietly for him to hear, "You don't know what you've started, Rode." He frowned, stepping closer, but she backed away, clutching the baby protectively. "What do you mean?" he demanded, voice low. Her gaze flicked to the window where faint headlights glowed in the distance. Her breath caught. "They found us," she murmured, her voice cracking. Rode turned sharply toward the sound, the faint crunch of tires on gravel. His heart slammed in his chest. The shadows outside moved. Someone was coming, and in that instant, the ghosts of the past turned into something far more dangerous. The air between them thickened, heavy with years of silence, anger, and unspoken love. The faint whimper of the baby sliced through the tension like a fragile thread of innocence caught in a storm of emotion. Rhode's chest rose and fell, each breath like fire. The sight of Layla holding that child, his child, made every buried feeling claw its way back to life. His fingers twitched at his sides, as if his body was torn between pulling her close and pushing her away. He took a step forward, his shadow stretching across the floor until it touched her trembling feet. "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice was rough, deep, a growl wrapped in pain. It wasn't just a question. It was an accusation, a plea, a cry from the man who had once sworn he'd never need anyone again. Layla's eyes flicked up to meet his. They glimmered with defiance, but beneath that strength, there was something else. Exhaustion, heartbreak, fear. "You left me, Rode," she said softly, but her tone cut like glass. "You left me when I needed you most. When everything fell apart, you weren't there. Tell me. Why should I have told you anything?" Her voice cracked on the last word, though she tried to hide it. Rode's jaw clenched. The air felt like it might shatter. He wanted to argue, to shout, to remind her that he left to protect her. But his throat wouldn't work. Her pain was louder than any defense he could build. "You think I wanted to leave?" he rasped, stepping closer. "You think it didn't tear me apart?" Layla's lips trembled. "You made your choice." Rode's hand slammed against the wall beside her, the impact echoing through the empty nursery. "I made a mistake," he growled, his voice breaking. "One I've been paying for every damn day since." The baby whimpered again, and for a second, everything stopped. Both of them looked down at the tiny bundle that unknowingly carried every secret, every heartbreak they'd ever shared. The tension in Rode's body faltered as his gaze softened. The baby's tiny fingers curled around Layla's dress, and something in him shifted. From fury to ache, from vengeance to yearning, he took a careful step closer. "He's mine, isn't he?" he whispered, his tone stripped of all authority, all armor. Layla's breath caught. For a heartbeat, she said nothing. Then, in a voice so fragile it nearly broke him, she answered, "What difference would it make now?" That question shattered what was left of his composure. He dragged a hand through his hair, pacing, his mind a battlefield of rage and regret. "What difference?" he echoed bitterly. "Layla, that child, he's my blood, my air, my reason to fight." Layla shook her head, holding the baby closer as if shielding him from the storm in Rode's eyes. "You fight for power, for revenge, for control, not for love, never for love." Her words hit harder than a bullet. He froze, his breath catching in his throat. He wanted to deny it, but how could he? He had built an empire of fear, not affection. His entire world was made of fire and shadows. "Layla," he began, his voice barely audible, "you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," she cut in. "You love the idea of control more than you ever loved me." He stepped forward again, closer now, so close she could feel his breath on her skin. "Don't test me, Layla," he warned quietly, though his voice trembled. "You have no idea what I'd give to undo what I did that night." Her eyes softened, just for a moment, a flicker of the woman who once loved him without limits, but it vanished quickly, buried beneath pain. "Undoing the past doesn't change what it cost," she murmured. Rode's chest heaved. He could feel the walls closing in, the ghost of their laughter, the echo of promises they broke, the weight of everything they lost. The moonlight spilled across her face, making her look almost unreal, like a dream he was afraid to touch. "I lost everything because of you," Layla whispered, her voice trembling but her eyes unyielding. "And still you haunt me, Rode. Even when I tried to forget, even when I wanted to hate you, you never left my mind." He swallowed hard, his throat tight. "Then let me haunt you again," he said, his tone dark, his words a dangerous blend of desire and despair. Her breath hitched. For a second, their eyes locked, and the world outside ceased to exist. Only their history, their pain, and their unfinished love remained. "Not this time, Rode." she said finally, her voice breaking. Not again. But he saw it. The single tear that betrayed her strength. It glistened under the moonlight as it rolled down her cheek, landing softly on the baby's blanket. Rhode's gaze lingered there, on that tear, on that baby, on the woman who still ruled his heart, even when she swore she didn't. Every instinct in him screamed to take her in his arms, to tell her he still loved her, that he never stopped. But he stayed frozen, caught between his pride and his pain. Then, a soft sound broke through the tension. The creak of a floorboard outside the door. Both their heads snapped toward the sound. Rhode's hand instinctively went for the gun at his waist. His instincts as a Mafia boss never rested. Layla clutched the baby tighter, fear flickering across her face. Rhode's eyes darkened, his body tense, every sense alert. "Stay behind me," he muttered, his voice low and deadly calm. But before he could take another step, the baby began to cry louder. A sound so pure, so fragile it almost didn't belong in a world like his. Layla's hand brushed his arm, stopping him for just a second. "Rhode," she whispered, her voice trembling, "don't make this house a battlefield again." He turned his head toward her, his expression torn between rage and heartbreak. "Then tell me who's out there," he whispered back. Her silence was his answer. The next moment stretched thin, the air alive with tension, the baby's cry echoing through the hall like a warning. Rhode's finger brushed the trigger. Someone was watching. Someone was close. And just like that, the war between hearts turned into something more dangerous. The line between love and danger blurred once again. Layla's gaze locked on him, pleading and terrified. Rhode's heart pounded. Whatever came next, one thing was clear. Neither of them would escape unscathed. The ghosts of their past had awakened, and this time they weren't leaving without a fight. The first light of dawn slipped through the broken curtains, painting the mansion in soft gold, a deceptive calm before chaos. For a fleeting heartbeat, Rhode watched Layla as she held their son close, his tiny hand resting against her heart. That sight, so fragile and pure, made something inside him ache. He hadn't felt peace in years, and now, standing in the ruins of his own past, he almost believed he could. But peace never lasted long in his world, not for a man like him, not for them. A sound broke through the quiet, faint, metallic, deliberate. The unmistakable click of a safety being removed. Rhode's body went rigid. He turned his head slightly, every instinct sharpened. The baby whimpered as Layla's arms tightened protectively around him. "What is it?" she whispered, her voice trembling. Rhode didn't answer. His hand moved to his gun, and then it came, the sound that ripped through the morning like thunder. Gunfire. The windows exploded inward, shards of glass raining down as bullets tore through the walls. Layla screamed, falling to the floor. Curling her body around the child, Rhodes spun, firing back before the first intruder even stepped through the door. The mansion filled with chaos, the sharp bark of rifles, the echo of boots against marble, the crackling scent of gunpowder. Rhodes moved like a storm unleashed, every motion precise, merciless. Years of violence honed him into something deadly, and now he fought with something far stronger than pride or vengeance. He fought for them. "Layla, stay down," he roared, diving behind the grand piano, reloading in one swift motion. She pressed herself against the wall, her eyes wide with terror, clutching the baby close as tears streaked her cheeks. "Rhodes, please." "Don't move," he barked, his voice raw, desperate. Bullets ricocheted off the marble pillars, splintering portraits and memories alike. Blood painted the floor, not his. Not yet, but the scent of it filled the air, sharp and metallic. Rhodes' men were nowhere near. This attack was sudden, calculated, personal. Someone had betrayed him. Someone had known exactly where to strike, at the one thing he could never lose. He emerged from cover, 2 guns drawn, eyes cold as steel. The intruders moved like shadows, masks covering their faces, weapons raised. Rode shot the first before the man could blink. One bullet through the chest, another through the throat. The second came from the staircase. Rode turned, fired once, and the man dropped lifelessly down the steps. The noise was deafening, the chaos relentless. Layla cried out as another bullet grazed the wall inches from her head. Rode threw himself in front of her, his arm wrapping around her shoulders, his body taking the next shot meant for her. The impact knocked him back, but he didn't fall. His eyes blazed with fury. "I'll die before I let anyone touch you," he growled through gritted teeth, blood trickling down his arm. He turned the gun toward the last two intruders and pulled the trigger until both fell, lifeless and broken. Silence finally reclaimed the mansion, though it wasn't peace. It was the heavy, breathless stillness that follows death. Rhodes stood there, chest heaving, smoke curling from the barrel of his gun. The baby's cries echoed off the marble walls. He turned, his expression hard but his hands trembling as he approached them. Layla stared at him, her face pale, her lips quivering. "Now you see why I left," he whispered, his voice hoarse, his eyes dark with something deeper than rage. "To keep you safe." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Tears streamed down her face as she looked around, the shattered glass, the blood, the chaos, all of it because of him. "You destroyed us instead," she whispered finally, her voice shaking. He flinched. Those words hurt more than the bullet. He stepped closer, each movement slow, deliberate, as if she might disappear if he moved too fast. "Layla," he murmured, his voice low, desperate. "I did what I had to. If they had known about you, about him—" His voice broke. "They would have taken everything." Her hand tightened around the baby. "You think you didn't take everything when you left?" she said bitterly. "You turned me into a ghost, Rode. You burned everything we had. And for what? To play God in a world of monsters?" Rode's chest rose and fell with uneven breaths. He reached out, his blood-stained hand trembling as it hovered near her cheek. "Then let me rebuild what I broke," he whispered. Layla's breath hitched, her eyes flicking from his face to his hand, then back again. For a moment she almost looked ready to believe him, until another sound shattered that fragile connection. Gunfire, again. This time from outside. Rapid. Closer. Rhodes' head snapped toward the door, every nerve igniting. "They're not done," he hissed, grabbing her arm. "Get up!" Layla's pulse raced as he pulled her toward the back corridor. "Rode, where are we going?" she cried out, clutching the baby tighter. "Somewhere they can't reach us," he said sharply, scanning the hallway. He kicked open the hidden panel behind the library, an emergency passage only he knew about. Dust swirled in the dim light. "Move!" Layla hesitated, glancing back at the chaos. "What if there are more?" Rode turned to her, his face smeared with blood, his eyes burning with determination. "Then they'll meet the devil they came looking for." The sound of boots echoed from the main hall. They were getting closer. He pushed her inside the passage, then turned back toward the door, reloading his gun with a speed that spoke of years of training and survival. "Go!" he ordered, but Layla didn't move. "Not without you," she said firmly, her eyes fierce even through the tears. For a moment his hard expression cracked, just a flicker of the man who once smiled only for her. He touched her face gently, his thumb brushing her tear-streaked cheek. "You've already lost me once," he said quietly. "Don't make it happen again." The pounding grew louder, shadows stretched under the doorway. Layla's heart thundered as Rode turned away, his back straight, his gun raised. The door exploded inward, and he fired the instant light hit his face. Screams, smoke, chaos again. Layla's breath caught as she backed into the tunnel, clutching their son so tightly he whimpered. She couldn't see him anymore, only flashes of gunfire, the sound of bodies hitting the floor, his voice roaring commands into the madness. And then, Silence. "Road," she screamed, but only the echo answered her. Her tears fell harder, dripping onto the baby's blanket. Every heartbeat felt like an eternity. Then through the smoke his silhouette appeared, wounded but standing. His shirt was soaked in blood, his gun still in hand. He stumbled toward her, and for the first time, Layla didn't hesitate. She ran to him, supporting his weight as he winced in pain. "You're hurt," she cried. He forced a weak smile. "I've been worse." Behind them, the mansion burned. Flames licked the walls, devouring the home that once symbolized their love. Rode turned his head, watching it all collapse. The empire he'd built, the memories they'd made, everything turning to ash. Layla followed his gaze. "It's over," she whispered. Rode shook his head slowly, his jaw tightening. "No," he said in a low voice, the fire reflecting in his eyes. "It's just beginning." Another explosion ripped through the far wall, forcing them deeper into the tunnel. Layla gasped as the baby started crying again, the echo of that fragile sound mingling with the roar of destruction. Rhodes' expression darkened as he realized the truth. Someone had betrayed him from within. Someone close enough to know every weakness, every secret. His empire wasn't crumbling by accident. This was war. And as he looked at Layla, his love, his loss, his reason, he swore silently to the darkness that whoever had done this would pay in blood. He pressed his hand to her cheek once more, his voice barely a whisper over the sound of fire and gunfire. "I'm not letting them take you again." She met his gaze, her fear giving way to something fiercer, faith. "Then we run," she said. And as the tunnel door sealed behind them, the mansion collapsed above, sealing the past in flame and betrayal, and marking the beginning of a vengeance that would burn even brighter. The tunnel walls trembled behind them, dust raining down as the echo of the explosion roared above. Layla clutched their son tighter, his cries muffled against her shoulder. Rhodes' arm wrapped protectively around her waist, guiding her through the narrow passage as the flickering lights cast trembling shadows across his blood-stained face. Each step felt endless. The heat from the burning mansion followed them, the air thick with smoke and memory. When they finally stumbled into the open night, the cold air hit like a blade. The world outside was still, a cruel contrast to the fire consuming everything they'd known. The faint glow of the burning mansion painted the sky in hues of orange and red, as if the heavens themselves mourned their past. Rode turned, his jaw clenched, watching the empire he had built collapse into ash. "It's gone," Layla whispered behind him, her voice trembling. "Everything." He didn't answer. The wind whipped through his hair, carrying the faint cries of their son and the distant echo of sirens. His mind wasn't on what they lost. It was already on who took it from them. "We have to move," he said finally, his voice rough and commanding. He took her hand, the contact electric even through the fear. "Where will we go?" she asked, following him through the darkened woods behind the estate. "Somewhere no one can find us," he replied, eyes scanning every shadow. "Somewhere safe." "Is there such a place for people like us?" she murmured, more to herself than to him. Rode didn't answer because they both knew the truth. Safety was an illusion, especially when blood and power were the currency of his world. They reached a narrow dirt road where a black SUV waited, hidden beneath branches and mud. Rode opened the door, his movements precise despite the pain throbbing in his shoulder. "Get in," he ordered softly. Layla hesitated, glancing at him, at the blood seeping through his torn shirt. "You're hurt." "I've been worse," he said through clenched teeth, echoing the same words he'd spoken inside the mansion. She bit her lip but obeyed, climbing in with the baby as he slid into the driver's seat. The engine roared to life, and they sped into the night, leaving behind the ghosts of the home they'd once built together. Hours passed in silence, the road winding endlessly through mountains and fog. Layla sat in the back, watching him through the rearview mirror. His eyes never left the road, but she could see the storm brewing behind them. The guilt, the rage, the need for revenge that had always been part of him. "Road," she said quietly, breaking the silence. Who were they? His grip on the steering wheel tightened. "People who wanted me dead." "And me?" she whispered. "The baby." He didn't look at her, but his voice hardened. "They wanted leverage, and they thought you'd make me weak." "Wouldn't they be right?" she asked softly, her voice trembling. He didn't respond, but the muscle in his jaw twitched. The silence said enough. When the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, he finally pulled the SUV off the road and into a secluded valley. Before them stood an old stone cottage, half broken, surrounded by tall pines. "Here," he said, cutting the engine. "This place is off every map. No one knows it exists." Layla looked around, clutching the baby closer. "You kept this hidden?" "Always," he said. "For emergencies." "Like tonight," she murmured. "Exactly like tonight." Inside, the air smelled of dust and memories long buried. Rhodes set his gun on the table and sank into a chair, his body finally giving way to exhaustion. Layla moved toward him silently, setting the baby in a small cradle she found in the corner. The child's soft breathing was the only peaceful sound left in their world. When she turned back, Rhodes was slumped against the chair, his head bowed, blood seeping through his side. Without a word, she grabbed a first aid kit from a cabinet and knelt beside him. "Take off your shirt," she said quietly. He hesitated, his dark eyes meeting hers. "You don't have to." "I said take it off, Rhodes." Her tone was firm, unyielding, the same voice that used to calm him when his world turned violent. Slowly, he obeyed, peeling the fabric away from his skin. The wound was deep but clean. Layla's hands trembled as she cleaned it, her touch gentle but burning through him like fire. "You haven't changed," she murmured after a moment, breaking the silence. "You still throw yourself into danger like it's the only thing keeping you alive." He gave a faint smirk. "Maybe it is." "And you still hide behind arrogance when you're afraid," she added softly, meeting his gaze. His eyes softened, the faintest trace of vulnerability flickering there. "And you," he said quietly, "still see through me." Her breath caught. The air between them thickened again, charged with everything left unsaid. Her fingers brushed his chest as she wrapped the bandage, and the touch lingered a heartbeat too long. "You shouldn't have come back," she whispered. "You shouldn't have stayed," he countered. "But here we are." Their eyes locked, two souls too broken to stay apart, yet too wounded to heal together. Time seemed to hold its breath as she leaned closer, her hand still pressed against his chest, feeling his heartbeat against her palm. "Rhodes," she breathed. His name trembled on her lips, and for a second it wasn't anger or pain between them. It was memory, longing, everything they'd lost but never stopped feeling. He reached up, his hand brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Layla," he whispered, his voice raw. "If I could take it all back, I would." Her lips parted, her eyes softening, and then his phone buzzed on the table. The moment shattered. Rhodes froze, his expression darkening as the screen lit up. A message. Just 2 lines. "The traitor is close. Someone from inside sold you out." His entire body went still. The air seemed to freeze around him. Layla's eyes widened. "What does it mean?" she asked, her voice trembling. He didn't answer immediately. His eyes scanned the message again, jaw tightening, thoughts racing. "It means someone close to me, someone I trusted, gave them our location," he said finally, his voice low, deadly calm. "Someone inside my own circle." Layla's pulse quickened. "Who?" "I don't know," he muttered, standing abruptly, "but I'll find out." He paced the room, his mind a storm of faces and names. Every ally, every guard, every friend, any of them could be the traitor, the betrayal cut deeper than any bullet. Road, Layla said softly, her voice shaking. What if they're still tracking us? His gaze snapped to her, sharp and focused. Then they'll come here. Her breath caught. And what will you do? His expression hardened, the familiar fire returning to his eyes. End it, he said coldly, before they touch either of you again. But as he spoke, a faint sound echoed outside, the crunch of gravel under boots. Both their heads turned toward the door. Rode reached for his gun, eyes narrowing. Layla clutched the baby, fear creeping back into her chest. Rode, she whispered. He raised a finger to his lips, motioning for silence. The wind outside stilled. The next few seconds stretched painfully long, and then a soft knock. 3 times. Slow. Deliberate. Rhodes' pulse quickened. Only one person in his organization knew that code. But if the traitor had that information, his grip tightened on the gun. The baby whimpered. Layla's breath came in short gasps. Rode took a step toward the door, his voice low and dangerous. If it's who I think it is, he murmured, then tonight, someone dies. The knock came again, echoing through the silence. And in that moment, they both realized the fire they escaped had only just begun to burn. The soft knock still echoed in Rhodes' mind as the door finally creaked open, revealing one of his surviving guards, face pale and trembling. Behind him, 2 more men dragged in a figure bound in ropes, bloodied, beaten, and unrecognizable under the dim light. Rhodes' gun remained steady in his hand, his eyes cold and calculating. "Who brought him here?" he demanded. The guard swallowed hard. "We caught him near the perimeter, boss. Said he came to warn you." Rhodes' gaze sharpened. "Warn me?" His voice was ice. "Or finish what he started?" He stepped closer, boots echoing against the wooden floor. The bound man lifted his head, one swollen eye catching the flicker of light. "Boss, please," he rasped. "It wasn't me." Layla stood at a distance, clutching their baby, fear mixing with curiosity. She could feel the storm building inside Rode, the darkness that always came before he unleashed hell. "Talk," Rode ordered, pressing the barrel of his gun against the man's forehead. "You've got one chance to make me believe you." The man coughed, spitting blood on the floor. "Someone inside. Ivan, he sold your location. He's working with Vargo's men. I swear it." The name hit Rode like a blade to the chest. Ivan, his oldest friend, his second in command, the one he trusted with everything, including Layla's safety, back when Rode left her 8 months ago. Rode's finger twitched on the trigger, fury flaring hot in his chest. "If you're lying—" "I'm not," the man cried. He said you'd never suspect him, that he'd make sure Layla hated you forever." Layla's breath caught. Her mind raced. What did he mean by that? The man hesitated, then looked at her with something like pity. "The attack. The one that left you broken. It wasn't the rivals who ordered it. It was Ivan. He told you it came from Rode." The world tilted around her. Layla felt her knees weaken, her arms tightening around the baby as truth and pain tangled inside her chest. Rode turned slowly, his expression unreadable, his voice deadly quiet. "What did you just say?" The man nodded desperately. "He set it up. Said if she hated you enough, you'd never come back for her. He wanted your throne, boss. He wanted everything." Silence fell, thick, suffocating. Layla stared at Rode, her voice breaking. "All this time, I thought you ordered it, that you wanted me gone." Rode's gun lowered, his chest heaved once, twice, as the weight of the revelation settled deep inside him. "I didn't know," he whispered. "Layla, I swear I didn't know." The man on the floor whimpered, but Rode barely heard him. The memories flooded back, the night he'd walked away, the blood, the screams, the cold silence that followed. He thought he was protecting her by leaving, but now he saw the truth. He'd left her in the hands of a monster he trusted. He turned back to the guard. Lock him in the cellar. No one leaves until I say so." When the guards dragged the man away, the room was left heavy with ghosts. The baby whimpered softly, unaware of the storm swirling around him. Layla stood in the middle of the room, tears streaming down her cheeks. "So, it was never you," she whispered. "You didn't abandon me. You were lied to." Rode looked at her, the truth breaking something inside him. He wanted to reach for her, to explain, but words felt useless against years of pain. "I thought I was saving you," he said hoarsely, "but I was feeding you to the wolves." Her lip trembled. "You let me believe you were the monster." His jaw tightened. "Maybe I was. Maybe I still am." She shook her head, stepping closer, her voice rising. "No. You're a man who's lost too much to his own war." Rode turned away, fists clenching as he tried to contain the storm boiling beneath his skin. "I killed for you, Layla," he said quietly. "I burned cities for you. I destroyed everything that ever threatened you." "Then stop destroying," she whispered. "Stop the war before it kills what little we have left." He turned back, eyes burning with something raw. "And if stopping means I lose everything?" She looked at him through her tears. "Then maybe you'll finally find peace." For a moment they stood there, two people bound by love, betrayal, and scars that time refused to heal. The faint light from the cracked window framed them like a painting of heartbreak and hope. Rode took a step closer. "Layla," he murmured, his voice rough with emotion, "if I end it, if I stop this war, will you stay when it's over?" Her breath hitched. The question hung in the air like a promise and a plea. Before she could answer, their baby stirred in her arms, letting out a soft coo. It was such a fragile sound, but in that moment it carried the weight of everything unspoken. Rhode's eyes softened, following the small movement. The child, his blood, his second chance, was the answer he didn't need words for. He closed the distance between them, his hand brushing the baby's head. "He's all that's pure in this mess," he whispered. Layla's gaze lifted to his. "Then let's protect that purity, Rode. End this. For him." He nodded slowly, the decision forming behind his eyes. "I will," he promised, "but before it ends, Ivan pays in blood." She flinched at the coldness in his tone. "Don't become him," she said softly. "Don't lose yourself again." His hand dropped to his side, brushing against the gun holster. "I already did, Layla. The only thing left is to decide who I kill before I die." She reached for him, her fingers brushing his arm, desperate to pull him back from the edge. "Please, not like this." He turned, eyes fierce but wet. "This is the only way I know." Before she could answer, a distant explosion rumbled through the valley, faint but close enough to shake the windows. Both of them froze. Rhode's eyes narrowed. "They've found us." Layla's heart leapt into her throat. "But how?" His voice dropped to a growl. "Ivan." He grabbed his weapons, checking the chamber, moving with deadly precision. "Stay inside," he ordered. "If I don't come back—" "Don't say that," she interrupted, clutching his hand. He looked at her, his expression softening for a fleeting second. "Then pray I come back alive." He turned toward the door, the baby's cries echoing behind him. As he stepped into the night, the shadows swallowed him whole. Layla stood frozen, tears blurring her vision as the sound of gunfire erupted in the distance. Each shot was a heartbeat, each echo a reminder that love and death were now inseparable. She looked down at the baby, their son, and whispered through her trembling lips, "Please bring him back to us." Outside, beneath the blood-red dawn, Rode moved like a predator through the smoke and the fire. His heart was breaking, his purpose clear. The war wasn't just for vengeance anymore, it was for truth. And as the first body fell, Rode knew this battle would either end his curse or seal his fate forever. The night had barely faded when the valley roared with chaos. fire curling into the sky like a beast unleashed. Rhodes' boots crushed gravel beneath them as he advanced through the smoke, every muscle wound tight with vengeance. His mind was a storm. Layla's voice echoed behind him, her plea clinging to his conscience, but the fire in his chest drowned it out. The scent of gunpowder mingled with betrayal as shadows darted between burning walls. His men had fallen, one by one, loyal until their last breath. Now only he remained, the last echo of his empire. Through the haze he saw Ivan, standing near the wreckage of an old barn, gun in hand, eyes cold and unremorseful. The man who had once been his brother now looked like a ghost of the past. "You finally came," Ivan said, smirking through the ash. Rhodes' jaw clenched. "You sold me out. You lied to her. You ruined everything I bled for." Ivan tilted his head. "I gave her the truth you were too afraid to show. You were always the villain, Rhodes. I just helped her see it sooner." The words struck like a whip, but Rhodes didn't flinch. His gun rose steady as steel. "You made her bleed, Ivan. You made her hate me. For that, you don't get to breathe anymore." Ivan's smile faded as he lifted his weapon. "Then come take your redemption." The first gunshot cracked the dawn open. Birds scattered from the trees, smoke danced between them, and time seemed to slow. Rhodes dodged behind the broken wall, bullets splintering wood near his head. His heart raced, not from fear, but from the pulse of unfinished war. Yvonne's laughter echoed. "You're weak now, Rhodes. You've gone soft." Rhodes' voice thundered back. "I found something worth being weak for." He rolled out from cover, firing 3 precise shots. One grazed Ivan's shoulder, another shattered a nearby crate, and the last tore through his arm. Ivan stumbled, dropping his weapon, clutching his wound. "She made you this," he spat. "That woman, that child, they've turned you into nothing." Rhodes stalked closer, smoke coiling around him like a crown of ghosts. "They turned me human." He aimed the gun at Ivan's chest, eyes burning with a lifetime of pain. "Something you'll never understand." Ivan laughed bitterly. "Go on then, kill me, finish your fairy tale." Rhodes' finger trembled. He saw flashes, Layla's tears, their baby's tiny hands, the promise he made just hours ago. The world slowed until he could hear his own heartbeat. Then, from the distance, a voice pierced through the smoke. "Rhodes!" Layla's cry reached him like a spark in the darkness. She appeared at the edge of the ruins, holding the baby close, her eyes wide with both fear and hope. "No more killing," she pleaded, stepping closer despite the heat and chaos. "Not with our son watching." Rhodes' chest rose sharply. His gaze flicked from Ivan to her, torn between rage and redemption. Ivan sneered. "She'll never forgive you if you spare me." Layla shook her head, tears streaking her face. "He doesn't need to forgive you. He just needs to stop being you." The silence that followed was deafening. Rhodes' hand trembled, the weight of the gun unbearable. The smoke thinned, revealing the sunrise breaking behind them, red and gold spilling over destruction. Slowly, he lowered his weapon. The metal clattered against the cracked floor, a final surrender. Ivan stared in disbelief as Rhodes stepped back. "You're not worth the bullet," Rhodes said quietly. "Your death would give me nothing." Ivan's voice was barely a whisper. "Mercy, Rhodes? From you?" Rhodes met his eyes, a ghost of sorrow flickering there. "No, this isn't mercy. This is me ending what you started." He turned his back and walked toward Layla, each step heavy, final. Behind him, Ivan collapsed to his knees, broken, defeated, not by blood, but by conscience. Layla's breath shook as Rhodes approached. He was covered in soot and blood, but his eyes, those fierce, untamed eyes, were softer than she remembered. "I've destroyed everything once," he said, voice raw. "Let me rebuild it. For you. For him." Layla stepped into his arms, trembling as their foreheads met. The world around them still burned, but in that moment, they were untouchable. "You already have," she whispered. The baby cooed softly between them, his tiny fingers gripping Rhode's coat as if anchoring him to life. Rhode exhaled, the first peaceful breath he had taken in years. The firelight reflected in Layla's tears as she looked up at him. "Promise me," she said. "No more wars, no more ghosts." Rhode nodded, his voice breaking. "Only one war left, the one to make this right." As the sun climbed higher, light spilled through the wreckage, painting their faces in gold. Behind them, Ivan crawled away, defeated but alive, a reminder that some wounds never fully die. Rhode didn't look back. He didn't need to. The empire he'd built in blood was gone, but the one in his arms was worth everything. He brushed his lips over Layla's forehead, then her lips, a kiss deep, dark, desperate, yet full of life. The kind of kiss that stitched broken souls back together. She melted against him, whispering against his mouth, "You're free now." He smiled faintly, a ghost of the man he once was. "No, Layla, you freed me." The wind carried the smoke away, revealing the quiet aftermath of war. His men's insignias lay scattered like forgotten stars. The mansion in the distance smoldered. Its reign ended. And for the first time, Rhode didn't feel loss. He felt beginning. Layla looked down at their baby, who had fallen asleep against her chest. "He'll never know the world we came from," she said softly. Rhode's eyes lingered on his son. "Good. He'll build a new one." They stood in silence, watching the horizon bloom. The crimson light softened into gold, wrapping them in warmth. Rhode tightened his arm around her, a silent vow written in touch. The Mafia boss was gone. The man remained. Layla lifted her gaze, studying him as if memorizing every scar. "What will you do now?" she asked. He looked toward the rising sun, his expression calm. "Start over," he said. "No armies, no blood, just us." She smiled faintly. "Can you really live without the fire?" He met her eyes, his voice low. "The fire's still here," he said, pressing her hand to his heart. "It just burns for something different now." Layla leaned into him, and the world around them seemed to still. The ashes fell softly, like snow. In the distance, sirens wailed, a reminder of what had been lost, but Rhode didn't turn. He carried Layla and their son away from the ruin, step by step, into the light. Behind them, the empire of shadows crumbled for good. The sky cleared, the morning breaking clean and fierce. As they reached the hill overlooking the valley, Layla paused, glancing back at the smoke. "Do you think they'll come for you?" she asked. Rhode wrapped an arm around her. "They can try," he murmured, "but I'm not that man anymore." The baby stirred, letting out a tiny sigh, and Rhode smiled, soft, genuine, unguarded. "He's my empire now," he whispered. Layla looked up, eyes glistening. "Then rule it wisely." He chuckled, kissing her hair. "With you as my queen, I'll try." The wind swept across the valley, carrying away the last traces of war. All that remained was the sound of the sea in the distance, steady and endless. Rhode turned to Layla once more, brushing a thumb across her cheek. "We've walked through fire," he said quietly. "Now it's time to live." She smiled, tears slipping free. "Together?" His hand found hers, fingers intertwining. "Always." The sunrise bathed them in light, the final chapter written not in blood, but in love. The Mafia boss had finally surrendered, not to power, not to revenge, but to the fragile, unstoppable force that had outlasted every bullet, to the fire that burned in Layla's eyes, to the tiny heartbeat that echoed between them, to love, the only empire that never falls. If this story touched your soul, please subscribe to Heart-Woven Tales. Press the bell icon, share it with your loved ones, and tell us your thoughts in the comments. Because every broken heart has a story, and every story deserves to be told.